The Chevy Corvette, an icon of the American automotive world. For generations, the Corvette has always been known as a fast, raw driving experience sports car that can hold its own against foreign exotics worth double its price. Although people love to hate on the Corvette by calling it a fake supercar, it remains one of the best options to maximize performance for price, and that's why it's still so loved today. From kids trying to pick up a C4 or C5 Corvette as their first sports car, to older enthusiasts knowing every spec of their car at your local Cars and Coffee, the Corvette lineup is truly timeless. But as crazy as the Corvette bloodline has been for the past 70 years, I don't think anyone was prepared for what GM released on July 25th, 2024. When I first saw this beast on Instagram, I thought it was some modified C8 Z06 built by Hennessy or another tuning company. But no, this is the C8 Corvette ZR1 in its stock form from the factory. And unlike Corvettes from the past, it's not just pushing up supercar numbers anymore, it's pushing hypercar figures. The new ZR1 is amazing in so many ways that I don't think we can cover it all in just one video. But its pinnacle is definitely its all-new V8 engine labeled the LT7. So today we're going to look at the engine powering the most insane Corvette GM has ever bestowed on us in this episode of The Prototype Pages. The newest iteration of the Corvette, the C8, is possibly the most un-Corvette-like Corvette ever built since its mid-engine. And it definitely gets some hate for this, but personally I think it's an amazing sports car. The base Stingray model started at an MSRP of around 60 grand when it dropped back in 2020, and with almost 500 horses, it offered an insane performance to price ratio. Now, to be fair, with inflation and dealer markups, that price is nothing more than a dream today, but it still remains an amazing sports car option. A year later, Chevy dropped the Z06, and with a smaller flat-plane, high-revving engine, the Z06 broke the record for the highest horsepower naturally aspirated V8, with over 670 horses, and starting around 110 grand. A year later came the E-Ray, the first ever hybrid and the first ever all-wheel drive Corvette, giving it a 0 to 60 of 2.5 seconds and around 655 horses. However, the ZR1 has always been the top dog of the Corvette lineup. The last iteration of the ZR1 was the C7, with an Eaton supercharged V8 delivering 755 horses and featuring insane upgraded aerodynamics. Now, the all-new C8 Corvette builds on the same concept as its predecessor, with the V8 taken to the extreme using forced induction and insane aerodynamic pieces to make it stick to the track like glue. But unlike the C7, the C8 ZR1 features something never found on a Corvette before, and that is twin turbos. And as a huge fan of turbochargers, this is definitely a pleasant surprise. Now, when it comes to new cars, the big number that everyone loves to first talk about is always horsepower, and the C8 ZR1 delivers with 1,064 horses. For reference, that's more than a Koenigsegg Agera, a Bugatti Veyron, a Model S Plaid, McLaren Speedtail, AMG Project 1, or any road-going Lambo, Ferrari, or Pagani ever built. Chevy claims that the ZR1 will complete the quarter mile in under 10 seconds.
I owe you a 10-second car.
And have a top speed of over 346 kilometers per hour, just over that of a 918 Spider. I wasn't lying when I said the ZR1 was reaching hypercar territory. Now, in today's market, when you hear of such an insane power figure, the first thing that comes to mind is that it must have a hybrid powertrain, right? Nope. The ZR1 is pure internal combustion. It's 5.5-liter V8 boosted by just 2 snails. Chevrolet definitely deserves their credit for making a car this powerful in this day and age, today's market, without folding to the pressure to use electric motors for a boost. The 6.2-liter V8 found in the Stingray and E-Ray is known as the LT2, and the 5.5-liter V8 found in the Z06 is known as the LT6. Now, the all-new twin-turbo 5.5-liter V8 in the ZR1 is called the LT7. Now, like the LT6 and the Z06, The new LT7 has forged pistons and a flat plane crankshaft similar to an Italian V8. With the flat plane crank, the firing order alternates between banks, naturally balancing itself out, and this removes the need for heavy counterweights, allowing flat plane crank V8s to rev much higher than cross plane crank V8s. However, because of the lack of counterweights, flat plane cranks experience much more vibrations. Because of these vibrations, flat plane V8s are usually limited to just 4.5 liters, because the smaller the engine, the less vibrations are produced. But then how is Chevrolet able to design such a big flat plane V8 for the Z06 and the ZR1 that doesn't just vibrate and rattle itself to pieces? They accomplished this by keeping piston speeds as low as possible by using an over square cylinder design, meaning a bigger bore length and smaller stroke lengths. Less stroke length means that the piston has less distance to travel and therefore reaches a lower speed. In fact, the pistons in the Z06's LT6 engine reach a top speed of 103 miles per hour, slower than the 458 Italia's piston speed of 109 miles per hour, despite the 458 Italia having a much smaller engine size of just 4.5 liters. The engine also uses lightweight forged titanium connecting rods and forged aluminum pistons and a harmonic balancer, all of which lower rotational mass and inertia. So this is how Chevy was able to build a flat plane V8 of 5.5 liters used in the Z06 and now in the ZR1, with the addition of twin turbos. The high revving nature of the flat plane V8 is why Chevy chose turbos over a supercharger. The downside with superchargers is that they rob the engine of top-end power at higher RPMs due to more rotational inertia, since a supercharger is driven by the engine's crankshafts. But because the ZR1's LT7 engine thrives in the high RPM range with a red line of 8,000 RPM, turbo lag isn't as big of a problem, making turbos the more ideal choice. And this allows the ZR1 to make more power than the Dodge Demon 170, which uses a supercharger, despite the Dodge Demon 170 having larger displacements. Two smaller turbos also work more efficiently and produce less lag instead of one larger turbo. With the engine in the middle, the C8 Corvette gave Chevy engineers way more space to fit twin turbos, whereas before they were restricted to a supercharger because there was just a lack of free space with the engine in the front. This is because the LT7 is such a wide engine, and there just wouldn't be space to fit a turbo to either side if it all had to be between the front wheels. The turbos produce a max of 20 pounds of boost, at which point the exhaust gases alone exiting the tailpipe push the car forwards with 37 pounds of thrust. The turbo's 76mm turbine wheels are made of MAR, a nickel-based alloy that could withstand extreme heat up to 1900 degrees Fahrenheit. Although the new LT7 has the same displacement, bore, stroke, valve sizes, and similar flat plane crank technology as the LT6, it's not just a version of the older engine with 2 extra turbos. The LT7 has new, stronger internals, camshafts, cooling systems, a lower compression ratio, oil scavenging, and additional port injection, presumably to keep intake valves cleaner and supplement the additional fuel needed to make over 1,000 horsepower. The stronger internals are needed to tolerate the higher cylinder pressure levels. It also has larger combustion chambers. The LT6's intake and exhaust system are fine-tuned to maximize airflow for peak, naturally aspirated performance, while the LT7 has the shortest possible intake and exhaust paths to minimize turbo lag. Fun fact, the LT7's intake manifold is painted edge blue, as a callback to the legendary C6 ZR1 known as the Blue Devil. Exhaust manifolds integrated into the turbos and air-to-water intercoolers that sit on top of the engine, instead of a front-mounted intercooler sitting further away, help lower the distance that air needs to travel. To further lower lag, the engineers employed electronically actuated wastegates to control overboost and create an anti-lag effect, which works as follows. When you let off the throttle in a braking zone, the wastegates close, not allowing exhaust gases to bypass the turbo, keeping it spinning and ready for when you reapply the throttle pedal. All these systems work together to produce a peak power figure of 1,064 horses at 7,000 RPM and 828 pound-feet of torque at 6,000 RPM, with over 800 pound-feet being delivered all the way from 3,000 to 6,500 RPM, helping the ZR1 jump off the line. To cope with these incredibly increased forces, Chevy has beefed up the ZR1's DCT's gears, rear wheel bolt pattern, and has upgraded its tires. Although Chevrolet hasn't announced how much the new ZR1 will start at, automotive journalists are predicting that it'll be from the 150K to 200K range. And although this may seem wild for a new Corvette, given the numbers and performance, I think this price is completely reasonable. Aside from the Dodge Demon 170, I really don't think you can get this level of horsepower and performance for a cheaper price. I mean, you could get a Model S Plaid, but let's be honest, EVs don't even count. And while the Demon 170 is a straight line beast, the C8 ZR1 is a completely different type of monster, a track-focused beast designed to take on the likes of the GT2 RS and SF90 Stradale. It's far lighter than a Demon 2, weighing in at only 3,670 pounds. Personally, I think the new ZR1 is incredible. I can see it getting some hate for the twin turbos, maybe it's untraditional, but I promise it's really not that deep. I mean, given the insane pure combustion engine performance that it delivers, I think the step away from tradition is completely justified. And plus, the ZR1 does pay homage to the old C2 Corvettes with the return of the split window, which I think is really cool. With this latest installment in the Corvette's legacy, I think the Corvette haters can no longer deny it, and that future ZR1 owners have earned the right to call their car a supercar. But what do you guys think about the new Corvette ZR1? Let me know down in the comment section. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider liking and subscribing. I'm going to try my best to start regularly making videos again, so thank you so much for watching, take care, and I'll see you next time.